The amount of bad press I've seen on myself on the internet is ridiculous. You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna piss people off, you apologize, but you're not gonna please everyone.
What are the main reasons that stop a lot of people from scaling their agency further and further? What's the secret sauce, so to say?
What people think, or what's the real reason?
We found a quote, over time we shifted to helping large brands with their marketing instead of smaller businesses. For example, we work with Panasonic, Philips, ESPN, CNN, LVMH.
We work with Louis Vuitton. We work with clients like LinkedIn. People don't care about Neil Patel. If I say, oh, look at Neil Patel, they don't care. They're like, we want to meet the people who are working on our account.
Ubersuggest, there were lots of pictures on you on the pricing page. The first thing you did when acquiring Answer the Public?
Put my image.
Put your image. Lots of people were making fun. And I'm quite shy of putting my image on things to kind of promote myself. So how do you deal with that? What's your look at this?
So
Hrefs Podcast.
First of all, I definitely listened to a lot of previous interviews to kind of figure out what topics I want to dive more into. And on one of the interviews, you said that you owned something around 20 businesses. It was hard for you to put the actual number on it. But I'm specifically interested to talk about your digital businesses, like your agency, your software businesses. So if we would build a pie chart of your kind of digital businesses in that area, in the marketing space, so to say.
Which is almost 100% of my businesses. It's all really digital.
Oh.
It's not really, I own tons of companies like 20. It's really only like one or two, but it's more so the companies are under the companies, like divisions, but they're separate corporations. So for example, like when we bought Answer the Public, it rolls up into the main company, but it was a separate company when we bought it, but we merge it in, right?
Okay, so pie chart, there's agency, there's software, I know, maybe education. Do you still make money with education? No.
Zero money education.
So how would you like put those percentages between agency, software, and anything else that you have? Maybe consult, maybe speaking?
Speaking doesn't make much. Speaking, maybe we've been doing less and less of it. Speaking is usually between 1 and 2 million in revenue. But we do less and less because the problem with speaking and paid speaking, a lot of times it's in random countries. So for example, I got offered a paid speaking gig in Nigeria the other day. And it was around $40,000 to go to Nigeria, plus they pay for travel and transportation, or food or whatever. But let's look at it as just $40,000 would go into my pocket. The amount of time it would take me to go from Los Angeles to Nigeria, speak for an hour, and then come back home, it's not worth the money. And some of them will be better because some countries have more money. I'm not saying Nigeria is poor or anything like that, but it's less developed than, let's say, a London or something. Some countries, like I can go to, call it like Saudi Arabia or Dubai, and some of them may pay like $75,000 or $100,000. 100 is more rare, but let's call it $50,000 to $100,000 for a lot of these events. A lot of the events that'll pay me money, I'll make money from speaking, but usually my target customer is not at those events.
Yeah.
So I'm getting paid from speaking, but I'm spending a lot of time and not really making money that grows the business. So it used to be where I can make, call it $1.5 million to $2 million on a good year, pre-COVID, okay?
Wow.
On speaking, before COVID happened. Now, if I have to look at it, I actually don't think I do between $1 million and $2 million. I think if I had a guess, $500,000 to $1 million max. And the main reason being is we don't accept most speaking gigs, and we're very picky in which we want our ideal customers to be at the events. And we've changed it to some events we'll even pay to speak at. Like I went to Canada, there was this organization that had access to all the CMOs of all the publicly traded companies in Canada. We spent $20,000 for me to speak there, plus I paid for travel, plus I paid for a hotel and my own transportation. So we're actually trying to shift, and it's not about how much can we get paid, it's about what's the revenue potential. Because if I get paid to speak, let's say on a good end, 100 grand, and that's a high paid speaking engagement for me. But then we generated zero revenue. But on the flip side, I paid $20,000 and we walked away with no revenue in the first 3 to 6 months, because usually we make no money in the first 3 to 6 months. But a year later, I generated $1 million or $2 million worth of revenue annually. And if a customer stayed with me for 5 years, that's $5 to $10 million worth of businesses in the long run. But I paid money in the short run, and I made no revenue also in the short run.
Yeah, that is very cool, and your speaking fees are impressive.
Not really. You look at like a Tony Robbins, a Gary Vaynerchuk, right? They really make good money. They truly have amazing followings and a large brand.
Yeah. But still, I want to go back to the pie chart. So agency, what percentage of your revenue is going from agency?
It's a good chunk.
70, 60, just the ballpark.
More than 50, less than 70, if I had a guess.
Around. So, and software is like what?
The rest. Okay, interesting. So we don't really look at speaking as like a revenue line item, because then we'll take some of the speaking fees we get and then we'll use that money to pay for events to speak at and use it also for the transportation and stuff. So we look at speaking as kind of like close to break even is our goal.
Yeah. I want to dive into courses, because I remember seeing a lot of ads from you on like Facebook, Twitter, where
for
you were
courses,
for evergreen kind of webinar funnel, where kind of the same webinar would run, and you would like tell your story, you would tell like what skills you used to be successful, what kind of knowledge you have in SEO and marketing, and you're going to teach it to people. I imagine, because I know some other people in this space who were selling courses, for example, in the past 3 years, and they were making multiple millions per year with those courses. I imagine for you, it was probably tens of millions per year.
No, it was not. We couldn't get course revenue to more than, or forget revenue. I don't know the exact revenue, but I know profit.
Yeah.
On a good month, not every month, a good month, our profit on a course was around $500,000. That was a good month. I would say the average month, the profit was somewhere between 3 to 400,000, but closer to like the 325, 350 range, right? On a normal month.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at courses, let's just say 4 million a year in profit.
But that's tens of millions in a year in revenue, basically, around that.
Yes, because to scale it up, you have to do advertising and things like that. We never did it long enough where we really scaled out courses. The problem in the digital marketing space, and you would know this, a lot of us have traffic from regions like India. Harder to monetize, right? So we looked at it in which we were selling a lot of courses to a small fraction of our traffic. And we couldn't figure out how to make enough revenue from the traffic volume. It's not about how much revenue and profit we're making from courses. It was, you have all these visitors and potential customers, but we couldn't monetize enough of them from a dollar perspective for it to be worth it for us to continually sell courses. And we actually shifted away. Like, honestly, I got a text message from an entrepreneur named Syed. And Syed runs WP Beginner.
Yeah.
And he asked, what happened to you in the latest Google update? I'll literally read the text message, okay?
Yeah.
So this is earlier today, as you can see, 7:39.
Yeah.
Did you see any recovery from the latest SEO updates? Anything that's working? I saw the MP blog got rid of comments, among other things, okay? My response, we did. I don't know how much. I honestly don't know what the team did, and I don't check the stats or analytics. Like, I was just being honest, right?
Yeah.
Most of our business doesn't come from any of that. Like, most of my businesses come from like RFPs, or like when I was in Malaysia, I was meeting with the biggest bank there. I was meeting with Nestle, meeting with ByteDance. I was meeting with Domino's. You know, like, I'm meeting with large corporations that are global and helping them out with their initiatives in either all of APAC or all globally, both on services and software.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to your agency and how you're running it and how you're making money there. But I want to just close the topic of selling courses.
Yeah.
I want to hear, well, basically, I can already see that one of the main reasons you stopped is because your time and effort is better used elsewhere. But I wonder if just the sheer amount of free educational content that is there today. I mean, Ahrefs, we have free courses about SEO and marketing. HubSpot, they have tons of courses.
Everyone's doing it. I don't think they monetize as well today. But you have to remember, I haven't done courses for probably 7+ years. I'm guessing on the time frame, but I think it's over 7 years since I sold a course.
Oh, okay. I think I saw those ads maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah,
there's no way I was selling a course 3-4 years ago. But sometimes I'll do, for example, we'll have a university in Brazil that we're a customer with, or a big news and educational based company. Maybe they're publicly traded. And they'll say, hey, Neil, we really love working with you and your agency because we have offices in Brazil. And I actually just recorded one for 3 hours, literally no joke, around 3-4 months ago, right? Yeah. Maybe a little bit earlier than, but less than 3 months ago, I recorded 3 hours worth of material. This was a customer of ours. They say, hey, we want to do education for CMOs and people who are going through universities. Those people eventually work at corporate America or global companies in Brazil or wherever, Latin America, that'll eventually be our customer. They wanted to do a course. I'll create 3 hours worth of content. They wanted probably a course, I don't know how long, maybe 15, 20 hours. I can't sit in front of a camera for 20 hours. But I was already in Brazil and I was there, and during my downtime, I recorded 3 hours worth of content. One shot, no editing, in front of a camera, no teleprompter, slides, just recording. And I was a little bit jet lagged because I forgot where I came from, but it wasn't the US, so the time difference was really large. And I was falling asleep, and I don't drink coffee. But my team figures out ways to keep me awake. Like, people will be in the background while I'm recording, and they'll show me a phone with like an image, and I got to say that word while I'm recording and integrate it into the content, and they'll do it every few minutes. So like, they may say like spider or like coffee or something, and I got to talk about marketing with my slides and the course material and integrate that in and make it flow like no one would know that I'm talking about something random at the same time, right?
Like you're blowing my mind, because I cannot just fathom why anyone would do that. And this makes me want, what course is that?
So it was a course on marketing, but this was like to keep me awake.
Yeah. But I want to see this course and see what kind of words you had to use in there.
So it was a course recently in Brazil, but it must have been an educational company like university or something like that. But then we did a course on that way, and they may advertise that Neil Patel has a course, let's say in Latin America or Brazil, but I'm not making money from it really.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they paid, I don't know what the deal was, but maybe they paid for flight and some time or stuff like that. But we work with them. So you're trying to make them happy because they're a bigger customer. And a lot of these companies are owned by other companies. So you want to make sure you're keeping them happy. So they refer you to more companies within their organization. And they're sending this out to college students and CMOs or business people, which are potential customers for us in the long run. So we'll do courses when it's like that, but it's more of a partnership, but we won't do a course ourselves, and we won't do it to try to make money. If someone else makes money from it, that's okay. But we'll get a lot of times like, I got hit up by like a Tai Lopez, and Tai Lopez is saying, hey, I'm creating a course and it's getting out, but his customer base isn't my customer base. So we don't entertain the course, and we don't even discuss how much money or anything like that, because the problem isn't money, it's time. I only have so much time in the day. I try to optimize it. I rather spend time at the park seeing my kids than making money from something. And I'm not saying I'm well off or rich or anything like that, but at the end of the world, you're not going to die with your money, right? I rather have a balance in life and really enjoy what I'm doing and get fulfillment, not just from work, but also on my personal life, then optimize everything for, hey, Tai Lopez will do a promotion to his social audience and email list. It'll grow my personal brand. I don't really care, right? It's not my ideal customer. Who cares if more people know me in marketing or don't recognize me. It's optimizing for my business, my team, my family, things like that instead.
It's interesting you mentioned Tai Lopez. He has a strange reputation, let's use that word, but we'll come back to it later, talking about the topic of popularity. Let's dive into your agency, because as far as I know, you have one of the biggest agencies in the SEO space.
We're tiny.
Who are the biggest agencies in SEO?
I would probably say Dentsu is the biggest.
But are they SEO? They seem to be kind of full stack agency.
They do everything.
Yeah.
I don't know how big their SEO division is, but Dentsu as a global agency, I know they do a lot of SEO, but maybe they do like 7, 8, 9 billion a year in revenue.
Yeah.
They do everything.
Course. These are the giants.
I don't know what portion is SEO. I know they do SEO under iProspect. It is not the lion's share of their revenue. The lion's share must be coming from paid ads like Google, Facebook, etc. But they merged iProspect, 360i, and Merkle together, right? I don't know how many employees they have in that division, but it has to be north of 10,000 because iProspect on its alone was 7,000. Merkle, from my understanding, was bigger than iProspect. So it's a big corporation.
Anyway, I had a few guests before on HF's podcast. Some of them run agencies kind of exclusively. Some of them own kind of parent companies that have agencies. But none of them, because yours is doing over 100 million in ARR, your agency.
Sure.
So none of them get to that point. And I was trying to discuss with them the topic of how do you scale agency to huge size. And specifically, I like to use an example of Gary Vaynerchuk. I think his agency is doing incredibly good. It's not definitely SEO. I think he positions himself more like
creative.
Yeah, creative, social, those kinds of things. But he's killing it. Like the guy is killing it with his agency. So what I want to ask you is, because there are tons of people who own agencies. I mean, in the SEO space, it feels like the simplest, the most no-brainer business to start. Like you work in-house. Oh, I have some skills. I'm offering some services to clients. Let me hire someone else and start my own agency, like 2, 3 people, 5 people. But then at a certain point, from my experience, it seems somewhere around 2 million in revenue, in annual revenue, people start struggling to grow it further. So what are the main reasons that stop a lot of people from scaling their agency further and further? What's the secret sauce, so to say?
What people think, or what's the real reason? Because
what's the real reason? Yeah.
The real reason is...
Name both.
So most people think they struggle with sales.
Yeah.
Which it is hard to generate sales in the agency world. I agree with them on that. But the real reason their agencies don't scale is churn. If you look at most agencies in the SEO or paid space, they're lucky to keep a customer for 1 or 2 years. If you keep a client for 5 years, what happens to your business? Keep them for 7 years, what happens to your business? In an enterprise agency, your goal should be churn of less than 10%, which means you're keeping customers for more than 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It adds up really fast if you can keep customers for longer. That's the hardest part. People don't know how to keep a customer. So if someone pays you just for SEO, your churn is going to be high. If someone pays you for SEO and paid advertising and email marketing and conversion optimization, they're more reliant on you. They're going to stay longer. Now, if you focus on getting bigger customers, I'm not talking about how much they spend with you. I'm talking about the size of the corporation. And you have to go through procurement and all these vetting process. And it takes you 6 months to get a client. It takes you a long time to get a client. They don't just fire clients, agencies right away because it takes a while to go through the system. Those customers, they may start off with you really small. And I'll give you an example. We work with Louis Vuitton and we work with them here in the APAC region. I forgot which country we started with them first. I just came from meeting with them in Hong Kong. I think I met up with them in Hong Kong in their new office. But we started with them. I forgot which region we started with. And then they start adding in more like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, etc. And then if you do really well, They'll say, okay, you help us with SEO, help us with social media. Okay, you do really well, help us with paid advertising. Oh, wait, you're doing really good and you're performing amazing in the numbers. Help us with SEO on social so when people type in handbags, you can show up. Oh, you're doing really well? Let us introduce you to Loro Piana, which is another brand that we own. Let us introduce you to this other company because Louis Vuitton is owned by LVMH. They have tons of brands. And then you do really well. Oh, you only help us out in APAC? Let's have you help us in Europe. Oh, you're doing really well in Europe? Let's have you help us globally and do a global RFP. Oh, cool. Now let's introduce you to more brands. And then you do more services for the brands. And then you do more regions. And then after a time, it adds up. And it's a very long sales cycle, many, many years to get a lot of regions, a lot of service items, a lot of divisions. Takes a long, long time. It's not a 1 or 2 year game or 5 year game. It's a 10+ year game.
You seem to personally be doing a lot of client meetings because before we started recording, you said you met with customers in Hong Kong, you met with customers with Malaysia. Here in Singapore, I saw on your website that NP Digital has a branch in Singapore and you're going to meet with more customers in Singapore. You are, what's your role at the agency? Owner, founder, CEO? Because I think you also mentioned...
No CEO. Founder, I don't really have a role. I think my title says CMO, but I don't really do any of the marketing for our agency. Believe it or not, there's a whole team. I don't even know what they do half the time. But I would say my role most of the time is speaking at events, mergers and acquisitions. I work a lot with our mergers and acquisitions team to evaluate deals and meet up with entrepreneurs, founders, convince them to try to sell to us. Strategize on what we should be buying. I spend time creating content like this, of course, for the marketing team. They set a lot of it up. People just come to my home, click record. They already have scripts and teleprompters, etc. And I spend a lot of time doing client meetings, but not as much one-to-one client meetings, more group client meetings. Like in Malaysia, we had 30+ clients come to our office, as well as, I don't know how many new potential clients. I think it was 32 current clients. And I think it was, if I had a guess, maybe 30, 40 prospects, potential customers that we're building relationships with. So I give a speech on some of the things that are changing, high level. Right? More things that are changing structurally in Malaysia, in APAC, in marketing, and then get to know the people, talk about some of their pros, some of the things that are doing well, some of the things they're struggling with, have team there, of course, and then get to know them, help them out and build relationships. And the team really handles the relationships of the client on the day-to-day basis. I come in there, I have notes before I even go into some of these events. Someone will tell me, here are the list of clients. Here's what we do. Here's the biggest clients. Here's the smallest ones. Here's the ones with most potential. Here's where this client is doing well. This is where they're not doing well. Here's a person. Here's an image of the person. You'll end up meeting them. So then I know who I'm talking to ahead of time. So then I'm going into it very prepared.
That's a very interesting format. It's kind of something between a small conference meetup and mastermind or something. And it feels from the way you're describing it, it's very personal brand driven. Like if you were not Neil Patel, if you were not known and popular, would those 30 clients gather in a room to hear from who I don't know who is CEO of NP Digital. If he would do or she this kind of thing, would the 30 clients come and hear from your CEO?
Yes, we do it all the time. And we do it in regions, and we do it every single month. And most of the time it's run by the people who are running those regions, and they still show up. You have to remember, they don't care who Neil Patel is. If you're Nestle, for example, okay? And your goal as a global organization, because Nestle is one of the biggest companies, we can all agree upon that. Your goal is to grow revenue. Do you think the CEO, CMO really cares who Neil is or Gary is or Tim is or Ahrefs is or NP Digital is? They're using tools like Ahrefs and Neil Patel as a means to a goal. They're using us to help achieve their results. The results are usually in marketing, more traffic, but that traffic should relate to not just brand awareness or followers, but it should relate to more revenue. And if you can help them achieve more revenue, they love you. If you can't, they don't care. It really is that simple. It's black and white. People have a number in these big organizations. A lot of them are publicly traded. They had to hit quarterly earnings. They need to grow. They have a global number that they need to hit for their stock. And then they take it down. What do I need to hit per product line? What do I need to hit per revenue per product line? Because these corporations have so many different divisions. Okay, now I know if I'm LVMH, what Louis Vuitton has to create. This is what Louis Vuitton has to hit in APAC. And then this is what Louis Vuitton has to hit in Hong Kong versus Japan versus Southeast Asia, Korea, South Korea. And then here's the numbers that had to come per channel from in-stores, online. What channels make them up? How do you generate the revenue from in-stores? Is it new people coming? Is it events? Is it inviting new customers? These are how global companies generate their revenue. It's all line item by line item, and it all adds up to this big number, and you have to help them achieve it. If you can, you get paid. If you can't, you're not going to get paid. And if you're lucky enough to get a contract, you better perform. If you don't, you're not going to get paid the next go around. If your software stops becoming relevant, they're going to switch to another software that can help them be relevant.
How senior are the people who come to those client events?
Very senior.
Very senior.
Yes, that's why they don't care who Neil Patel is. They care about their number. They're meeting and coming to him to try to figure out how to hit a number. They have a job. They're getting hired to grow the numbers. If they don't hit the numbers, you think they're going to keep getting employed and still be there forever?
Yeah, makes sense. You keep mentioning those big brands. And I think we found a quote where you said that over time, we shifted to helping large brands with their marketing instead of smaller businesses. For example, we work with Panasonic, Philips, ESPN, CNN, yada, 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 LVMH that you've mentioned. But you have two divisions of your agency. You have NP Digital, which is kind of global agency that caters toward enterprise. And you have NP Excel, do I pronounce it correctly? Excel, which is small businesses. But it feels that in the early days, you were focused more on small businesses, and only recently you started going enterprise.
So we started our agency in Brazil, okay? Years and years ago. I was at a conference and some people said, we want to help translate your website into Portuguese. So started going down the translation route. And eventually when I saw the traffic increases, I started doing this globally. And then they said, you're getting so much traffic and so many leads in Brazil, we want to create an agency. I'm like, I don't want to create an agency. And of course, by them using my name, I own the majority of the agency, right? Pretty much almost all of it. And then they started closing revenue. And in Brazil, they mainly focus on SMB. And one day we were like, you know what? We have so many leads of corporations who want to work with us, large corporations. Let's create an agency. But the majority of the people that hit us up were SMBs. So in the United States, we started an SMB agency at the beginning. It wasn't enterprise. You know, this end of this year will be our 7th year. I'm not including Brazil. Brazil was started before then. And this will be the 7th year of which my co-founder and I actually have run the agency and really been in. Within the first few years, it was an SMB agency. At the end of year 1, we started thinking about more enterprise. End of year 2, we started hiring people from like Dentsu and WPP that would help us make that shift. We started seeing enterprise results at the end of year 3. Good results. Not great, but good enough where we knew it could work. And then we started shifting all the SMB stuff to NPXL. And globally, we focus on enterprise. We don't really create SMB agencies anywhere globally, even though we get the demand for it. We keep it in the United States. We do some SMB work in some other regions like Australia, UK, but it's mainly an enterprise shop. We do have SMB clients that we take because we see potential in a lot of these SMBs. When I say SMBs, there's a lot of startups that raise $50 million that are growing fast, or $10 million, and they're just organically growing. or they're founded by someone who's well-known, who's well-capitalized, right? There's a lot of potential. Or sometimes it's a really small contract with a small brand, but it's owned by a large private equity company. And if you do well, you can get introduced to all the other brands, or, there's a lot of companies funded by like KKR and Carlyle that a lot of us wouldn't know, but Excel or KKR and Carlyle have tons of money, right? I don't know what their assets under management are, but I would believe it's well north of $100 billion or somewhere around there.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you basically translated your website in Portuguese. And I think you also emailed me around this time asking, because we had translations in Portuguese, and you emailed me asking like how our traffic is doing. But yeah, and then you said essentially someone approached you to, let's start an agency together, something like that. And what's interesting is that I would probably call it I'm not sure if you agree with me or not, but I would call it something like a white label agency, where there's some existing agency with like nice employees, good operations, some existing clients. So they have the engine in place, and you come in essentially as a lead generator and the face of an agency. And I know at least a few other people, I won't name them just in case not to out them, but I know at least a few people in the SEO space who are building their personal brand. And then there are completely different people with agencies who are serving the clients that they're bringing them. And those two are separate. So this agency exists by itself.
It's a back office.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of companies like Boostability is known to do that globally. They're one of the bigger back offices. They do it for like GoDaddy. If you buy SEO from GoDaddy, it's usually serviced through Boostability. If not, it is. I don't know if they still currently have the contract, but they've had it for many years, or so it could be current or not. But there's a problem with that model. So we didn't start an agency at first. We were getting a lot of leads for consulting, even though we had the Brazil operation at the time, and we were getting a check from it. We took our leads and gave it to other agencies. They weren't white label agencies, and we would work with customers and forward it to them, and they would close. And it would be transparent that people were working with that agency, and we would get a kickback, a commission. And the commission started adding up, and within 6 months, it got to around $500,000 a month in commissions. There's not too much cost on the $500,000. It wasn't all profit, but close enough to not 100% profit, but it was well into the 90+ percentile in profitability. That's when we realized we should stop sending leads to other people and just do it ourselves. And the reason being is customers didn't want to be passed to another agency. They wanted to work with us. And these agencies had churn. And we quickly saw, because you can look on a monthly basis of churn, we're like, wait, they don't know how to retain. At the beginning, we also struggled too, because you learn as you go along. But eventually we hired the right people to figure out churn and fulfillment and satisfaction. And we also knew that the money wasn't in SMB, it's in enterprise. Because there's like, WPP has a contract to do Dell's marketing. It's more than $100 million a year just in services fees.
Wow.
That's a lot of money. Like, we're still small. We're not getting the big contracts for $100 million or $200 million, or we're not getting Procter & Gamble, which is the biggest marketing spender globally. They're not giving us all their marketing. We're too small for that kind of stuff.
One interesting, I really love the model of having kind of a back office agency when you or someone else or me potentially focuses on the personal brand, and we pass the leads to an agency, but we should make sure that the agency does a good job, especially if we're not disclosing that it's kind of a back office. If we say that we are kind of responsible for the results of this agency. And I want to ask you a question. How do you ensure that this agency performs their work up to your standards? Because again, I won't frame it as a jab at you directly.
Yeah.
But when I asked around, like, which questions should I ask Neil Patel? Of course, people said, I've heard people worked with his agency and like they did a terrible job, blah, blah, blah. But I can name myself quite a few agencies that I worked with and they did a terrible job. But other people worked with those agencies and they did a great job. So agency is big, you have a lot of people, and you cannot satisfy 100% of your customers.
Never, sadly.
Yeah, but still because it's your name at stake, you're clients come, they want to work with you, they want to work your quality. So how do you ensure that this company that runs almost independently, but I know what is your situation, how do you make sure that they perform up to your standard?
You're talking about when we were giving leads to other agencies and they're giving us a commission, or are you talking about when we run it ourselves?
Digital, where people think they're working with you, but
it is me. They're working with me.
It is you.
NP Digital is my agency.
Ah, okay. Because so you changed the model from when you started in Brazil.
When we were in Brazil, I was the owner on paper of the company.
Yeah, this is the case, but that's not anymore.
No, I still am. But okay, so let's go back. I think there's a little bit of confusion.
Yeah.
When I went to Brazil and spoke, they helped translate the content, started getting a lot of traffic, and started getting leads. They said, you should create an agency here in Brazil. I already have worked with them, and I knew at this point, because they were helping me with marketing efforts, not just for my own site in Brazil. They started helping efforts in other regions and with some of my other software companies. So I knew they were good marketers. So they said, we want to create an agency in Brazil and partner with you. So I knew the three co-founders at the time, right? And they each had 10% of the business. We had 70%, they had 30% at that time. And we ended up doing a deal with them because we knew they were good marketers and we were happy with them. So if someone was mad and I got word of it, we would have conversations and try to help out. The problem is when we were globally at the time, we didn't want to create an agency in all the countries. Eventually, we took the Brazil agency when we created NP Digital and put it all under one company. You get what I mean? And restructured and figured out a new deal, etc., to make everyone happy. When we did that, it was under my name. In between, right? Brazil happened first, but that was we were part of. In between of me creating NP Digital, we were selling leads to another agency, and they could be called SEOagency.com. I'm making up a name. And we were having the issue that people were not satisfied, and you're going to get a percent to complain, but too high of a percentage were complaining. And we didn't like that because we believed it was going to tarnish the name. So we stopped that really quickly. When we started our own agency, we also had issues when you have sales and you're growing fast. Sometimes people sell accounts they should not be selling. So I'll give you a great example. Our SMB division one time sold this lady for an SEO campaign at something like $900 a month. I don't know how it got through. We do not offer services. No, not 900, 2,000 a month. It was at 2,000 a month or something. No, 900. It was something like $900 a month. At that time, they were not allowed to sell anything for $900, right? Not for services. You can sell software for $900, on per month. We don't allow selling services for $900 at that time where we were in business and in that region, right? Every region has its own currency and stuff like that. If an enterprise brand in Colombia at that time wanted to do something for $900, currency exchange, and that's tiny for us, we would take it knowing, hey, it's a $50 billion company. It could grow to $500,000 a year or $1 million or whatever. But this was an SMB client. And they sold them at $900. This lady was importing hats from Mexico. I don't know what they're called, but like they're Mexican style hats, and selling them in the United States. Single person, lived by themselves, had kids. And I was like, how the heck are we supposed to get this lady a ROI? I got an email for her. She was complaining and she was sad on the results. And I was like, we can't actually service a client for $900. My cost of labor is too high. Who the heck sold this? The moment we found this out, because we got the complaint within like 2 months of them becoming a customer. I remember at scale, and I hate to say this is our fault, things slip through the crack. We're not big like Microsoft or Apple or anything, but like the larger you grow, things slip through the crack. At Ahrefs, I don't know your revenue, but I'm guessing it's 9+ figures, right?
Over 100 million, yeah.
Yeah. No matter how much you try and care, at least one time in the last year, something has slipped through the crack.
Of course, yeah.
And I bet you it's many more times than that. But you try to fix it. So with this lady, I'm like, I'm so sorry. We should have never taken you on a client. I don't know who sold you, but we looked into this and we quickly fixed it on our end. And I don't know what the management did, but either you termed the person for not listening or you put them on notice or you had to tell them they're not allowed to do this and you write them up, right? You go through HR and you follow the procedures. And I was like, I would love to give you back your money. So we give her back her money, but she says, I don't want the money. I want you to do services for $900 like my contract says. We can't make it profitable. So I worked out a deal with her. I gave back her money and I said, I personally will help you. You have to implement. I can introduce you to 2 or 3 people that can help you implement that are cheap overseas. And I personally will do an hour call with you for a few months, once a week, and we'll grow your numbers. And we did that. Her numbers started growing. She started making more money. Within a few months, we were able to scale the revenue from $1,000 something a month to around $7,000 a month. She was happy. But then she says, I want to do more with you guys and pay more money. I told her our arrangement was only a few months. I can't keep doing it. Economics wise, it did not make sense. But we will try to go and make people happy. Does that mean everyone ends up delighted? No, but we try to. And we measure things like churn and do NPS studies. We talk to our customers. So we look at all these things to look at satisfaction. Our NPS scores are actually quite high. And they do them on a quarterly basis. And I don't track it myself. I get a report on it every quarter, but I more so look at things that are problems. I don't focus my time on the things that are going good. I try to focus on the things that are bad and fix them. Because the way you grow a business is not focus on where people are delighted and happy. You focus on where things are upset or things are broken. You focus on fixing it because that's where the ROI is, right? It's like you and your founder focusing on, I don't know, support. I think you have great support. What's the point of you spending your time being like, guys, look at our support scores. They're amazing. Good job. You can celebrate that every once in a while, but you're better off focusing on new efforts or where there's issues and fix that first.
Yeah. Speaking again of bigger clients, I loved the exchange you had on Twitter. When was it? Last year or something? When someone pointed out that your SEO traffic to new Patel Digital.
I remember that.
Yeah, you even replied. You rarely reply on social media, someone, but you replied, wait, do I have a quote or something? We don't get these customers through SEO. We get them through conferences. Basically what you said is our business is not servicing SMB customers that much anymore. This is why SEO traffic is not that critical. We are now shifting towards bigger clients, bigger enterprise clients, the ones that you were naming. And those are not coming from SEO. I can attest to that because at Ahrefs, we also get a pretty fair amount of SEO traffic. I think our website is doing like 6 million just from Google per month or something like this.
And I bet you the majority of your signups come from word of mouth of people hearing about Ahrefs and hearing great things. That is the majority of your signups.
So it's hard to tell with self-attribution because it has its own downsides. But still, the point I'm trying to make is that, SEO traffic, it might be good for branding towards people who work at big corporations. But in terms of closing enterprise customers, I mean, we don't have that many enterprise customers who would come and self-serve. Essentially,
I'm assuming most of your Ahrefs customers are SMB and mid-market or agencies.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
So, which is what comes a lot from SEO. And to get enterprise customers is a very different game. You can generate SEO traffic for enterprise, but there's not enough volume, right? So we work with a lot of B2B clients. If I had a guess, I would say around 40-ish% of our revenue, and I'm guessing, I'm rounding up or down, but I would guess around 40% of our revenue comes from B2B companies, like software companies like the SAPs, the Salesforces, etc., Snowflakes, etc. I'm not saying there are brands, but I'm just giving you examples of corporations, right, that are in B2B SaaS. If you look at them, they do generate traffic from SEO, but it's a small percentage. A lot of their revenue is also coming from RFPs, sales forces, right? Like you're actually having feet on the ground, relationship building, business development, awards, partnerships. It's all these other channels, which in essence are a form of marketing, to do partnerships with other people, cross-promoting, having the right material and collateral, promoting each other partnerships. This all helps drive revenue, and it is marketing, but it's a different type of marketing. And we're finding SEO does generate revenue for large corporations, and it's very profitable, and it can be a good big channel, but it's never the lion's share. And what we've seen in big companies that are doing not $1 billion in revenue, but 5 billion, 10 billion, et cetera, in revenue, no one marketing channel makes up 10% of their revenue. It's a lot of channels all adding up other than their brand name. Brand, of course, and reputation makes up a good chunk, but outside of that, everything is a small single-digit percentile for majority of them, at least.
So I again want to get some kind of free consulting from you on how to get big enterprise customers. Because like I said, I definitely agree that enterprise customers don't just self-convert from discovering you.
Wait, for Ahrefs?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be hard unless you change your philosophy on employee count. Now, I could be wrong here, but it was a long time ago. I think I read something other than support. Your goal is not to have more than 50 people.
Yeah,
I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, we did definitely say that some 5 years ago, but as we're growing and as we want to expand, we do understand that, changing headcount does make sense.
You got to build big customer success and sales teams if you want to really change this.
Yeah, but I want to talk about acquisition. So you said two things, or just one thing. You said that the agency is doing marketing kind of on their own, even though you are the face and you're doing a lot of publicity and you're driving awareness about the agency.
I'm not really the face. We actually drive very little revenue from me. We actually generate more revenue from our leaders in each region because they came from WPP, Dentsu, Publicis, Omnicom, and they already have relationships with most of the enterprise brands within Malaysia or within Australia or Singapore. So that's how we generate most of our revenue.
That's awesome. Let's take the example of Louis Vuitton, which you said is your customer. So if let's not even focus on HR specifically. If some software company in the marketing tech space wanted to get Louis Vuitton as their customer, we definitely don't do it via SEO. We need to somehow kind of do account-based marketing to them. So what are your typical strategies, or rather the typical strategies of your agencies to get those high-ticket customers? How does it look like?
A lot of it. So I'm going to give you a caveat at the end that's really going to change something for you or the perspective on this and most people who are listening who have agencies. But a lot of it is doing tons of things consistently for a while. So hiring people who already have the relationships, throwing in-person events, getting award submissions within those regions for our work so people can see, hey, there's credibility here. We've actually won 50 plus awards for our marketing in a short period of time. Genuinely, on an annual basis, we tend to win more awards for our work and the results than most agencies out there. We also do things like sending cold emails and doing account-based marketing based on our ideal customer profiles and trying to target those people. We also do webinars. We create content on social. We have our team creating content. We're pretty much doing most of the things that you already know about and everyone listening here is doing. We run a little bit of paid ads here and there. It's hard to make it profitable because in our space, a lot of it's expensive. So we're doing most of those things. And doing it consistently and being in the field helps us get a lot of these customers because there's a lot of it's also reputation. So for example, I don't see this as a bad thing, but Ahrefs has been around in a while. You guys have changed pricing in a while. A lot of private equity companies buy software companies. You know what the first thing they usually do when they buy these software companies?
Change pricing?
Change pricing. And people get upset. You know who the majority of the people who get upset is?
The lower tier, the one who's paying the least.
Yes, and you lose some of them. You agree with this. You're always going to lose some. But a lot of the bigger companies, do you think they really give a crap?
No.
It doesn't make a difference to their bottom line. Do you think they're going to care what an article says online about this? Do you think they're going to take time to email you about your change pricing or complain on social media? Yes or no?
No, of course not. No.
but the people who are typically the smaller businesses care the most. And do you think they make the loudest noise or the least amount of noise?
Of course, the loudest, because they have more time to do those kinds of things instead of like growing the actual business.
And then when you do this change, you see overall a revenue increase. I don't need to know how much, but over time, you probably see a revenue increase. And I think you've done price changing more than once, right? And it's worked. It works for most private equity companies. The point I'm getting at is you optimize a business and you run it based on what's moving the needle and what's working. And it's a lot of little things over time that really make an impact. Some of it could be price changing. Some of it could be, I think you hired a guy named Sam years ago, good guy. He may still be with Ahrefs. I haven't kept in touch with him, but great guy. I think he was based out of Canada or something like that. And he was doing a lot of YouTube videos at the time, right? And you were doing really well on YouTube. But when you look at a lot of these YouTube videos, did you really see a drastic impact in your revenue growth from YouTube?
So too bad our conference is happening before this goes out, but Sam actually is going to present at our conference here in Singapore and show the impact that our YouTube channel is having. I think he estimated that around 10% of our signups self-attribute to YouTube.
In the long run. But when you first started you've been doing YouTube for a very, very long time now. In the first year, it probably wasn't even 1 or 2%.
Of course.
Right? It took you so many years of investing, more than 5 or 6 or 7 is something long like that, of spending all this time and money. And I've seen ads on YouTube. It's not just you're on YouTube and it drove signups. You've spent a lot of money on ads on YouTube. Would you agree with this over time, over the years?
I wouldn't say a lot, because we were historically quite conservative with our ads, but we did spend not a lot, but let's say okay-ish.
It also depends for your size. For most SMBs, they probably would say it's a good amount of money.
For SMBs, yes. For our size, it's very small.
Correct, because it's a big organization and you spend on a lot of different channels. But for SMBs, it would be a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is a lot of little things add up and drive a lot of revenue over the long haul, right? Which gets me to my next point. The reason we do well getting enterprise brands, what's the most common thing with most enterprise corporations that are large? Where do you think they're based?
US?
Which one's based in the US? If you pick one enterprise brand.
Well, for example, let's see, CNN, ESPN, LinkedIn, US, Adobe, US.
Yeah. But did you know CNN is also in Brazil?
Like, if you mean there are huge corporations around the globe?
Correct. Like their offices are not just in the US.
Yes.
They're not US. They may have started from the US. They may be headquartered in the US, but they're global. You agree with this, right? Most big companies are.
Yes.
Even Ahrefs. You could say you're headquartered out of Singapore, but you're actually global. You have people all around the world working for Ahrefs. You agree with this? Sam is not based out of Singapore.
Yes.
Right? You have developers, I still think, in Ukraine. Correct? Maybe not as many.
Not right now.
But yes, but you used to, right?
Yeah.
And you may have some support people in different time zones, right?
Yeah, of course, we have lots of remote employees. Yeah, definitely.
So when you're a global corporation, now I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm going to say Ahrefs is small, and I'm going to also say we're small. Because in the grand schemes, compared to Apple or Google or LVMH, you would agree that we're both small. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but would you agree we're small in comparison to LVMH?
Of course.
Right? We're peanuts. We're like a penny, right? Compared to, how much they're worth. Their founders are worth like almost $200 billion or something crazy. So in that perspective, and again, I'm not trying to offend you or anyone. We're tiny. And these organizations are not just global. They have so many divisions and brands. The reason we do well for a lot of our services, we're a global company where we actually have people on the ground in a lot of these regions. So their options are work with the holding company, like a WPP, a Dentsu, etc., or work with the independent. You meet a lot of agencies. The reason they're having a hard time getting these enterprise businesses is they're not in enough regions. Let's say even in their most talented SEO, there are not enough regions where they're working with corporations like Stripe, like we do a lot of SEO for Stripe. Well, Stripe is in a lot of countries. you can't just do work for them in the United Kingdom or the US. They have all these language requirements and requirements for people on the ground in these different regions. If you can't provide that, you're not going to get the contract, no matter if you're Neil Patel or Gary Vaynerchuk or Tim or, the most popular marketer, whoever they are, right? You're not going to end up getting any of these contracts if you don't meet these requirements. This is why we do decent. I'm not saying we do well, but we do decent because we're able to have people on the ground in many of the regions these big corporations require.
Still, I want very specific tactics and strategies for landing those clients because
I'm telling you, there's no specific tactic. It's actually relationships.
How do you build relationship? That's
we don't build them. We hire the people who have the relationships. That's why I said I'm bringing my executives from WPP, Dentsu, etc. And I'm hiring the people who ran like strategy for Dentsu Spain to run strategy for us in Spain because they already have the relationships. So then when I go to Spain and I'm doing corporate roundtables, they're like, Neil, meet the CMO of Coca-Cola Europe, or not the CMO, but the head of marketing for Coca-Cola in Europe. Here you go. Here's an introduction. They're here at the same table and you're meeting them. How do you know them? Oh, I worked with them at Dentsu and I've known them for so many years. That's how you're getting these enterprise. Most enterprise businesses is done from relationships.
Yeah, that is a piece of advice that I got back like 6 or 5 years ago when we had that lunch in Las Vegas. You said that you like hiring people who've been there, done that, because you know that they're going to perform well. But I think at that time you were talking about hiring operators for your agency. So you want to hire someone who was an operator in the big agencies because you know they did this job there and they want to move it.
No, but it's the same for all sectors. It's the same. We do that. We've always done that for operations, even sales. We look for the top sales reps who work for competitors, bring them over because a lot of it's relationships. And what I mean by that is, yes, they still get leads from paid ads and YouTube and SEO. But if they've been doing it for 10, 15 years, they're like, oh yeah, I've been to so many conferences. I have all these relationships with past clients where I've produced great results. And they just know a lot of people in this space. So even when we hire a managing director, Dan is our managing director of APAC. He managed Canada for iProspect. iProspect is owned by Dentsu. He then managed either Australia or APAC for Dentsu. Eventually he did our APAC when we got him and our Australia, but he started with Australia. He's been with us for 3 years. And when we hired him, he had a lot of relationships because Dentsu wasn't his first job. He's worked in the space for a long time. He's an operator. Not only does he know how to run an agency, he knows the salespeople who are well connected. For example, he'd be like, you got to hire this person in Singapore because a lot of RFPs for APAC come out of Hong Kong and Singapore. He's like, this person dealt with all ad revenue for B2B for Twitter, now X, but Twitter at the time. Built a big book of business. They can help introduce us to a lot of the B2B clients. This person worked at ByteDance. They know all the customers in Hong Kong that are running RFPs from there. This would be a great hire because they can open up doors. It really is relationship based.
I totally get it. But one element of it that feels awkward for me, and maybe for no reason, you can explain it to me. So, for example, if I'm going to some hair barber shop and I have a hairdresser who I really like, and they decide to move from this barber shop to another barber shop, and it's very kind of common that all the clients would follow because you're not necessarily going to a barber shop, you're going to a specific person who services you. Maybe same like, I don't know, with dentists or whatever. If a dentist moves from one clinic to another, there's a high chance that you would go with that person because they know you and you've been working with them. With salespeople who go from agency and take their clients with them.
I know where you're going. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
When you take a salesperson from an agency, their clients don't come with them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're dealing with enterprise contracts. Remember how I told you at the beginning, it takes like 6-ish months to even try to get some of these contracts, sometimes longer. Sometimes it's taken us a year and a half to get a contract because they pause, they unpause, they're not sure, they do it later. But these people aren't taking their clients. they have built relationships and are known for SEO or paid, or they know most of the buyers for marketing within the ecosystem. For example, if I take someone who did sales for Twitter in B2B, they're in ad sales. Their relationships are with corporations who spend money on marketing. That company will still spend money on Twitter, but they introduce them to all of our services that they should know about as well. It's not like anything changes on Twitter. They're still spending money on Twitter, but now they're familiar. And as I mentioned, if you think about the salespeople I talked about, I mentioned places like ByteDance, Twitter. I'm not really focusing too much on you did agency sales at, WPP. I'm more focused on you did advertising sales at TikTok, Google, etc. Because they have the relationships with a lot of people who are spending the money. Those people also spend money for agencies. And you're also building relationships. Yes, we've also hired people who have done sales in past agencies, and they have also built relationships, not necessarily their book of business. In sales, in enterprise is not what you're thinking, and I'm making an assumption here. Most people look at a sales rep as, I'm here and I'm just selling you on a service. And then once I sell you, someone goes and does the work. If you go and work with a holding company like WPP, etc., your job is to close the client with the team. And after you close them, you yourself had to service it. A salesperson isn't a traditional salesperson where they're just going and their job is to only close the deal. They are account managing, building relationships, all those kind of things. Clients churn over time. These are long-term contracts. You can't just take someone from a competition and expect their book of business to come with you. If they bring any customer in the first 12 months, you're lucky. And B, there's a lot of legal clauses that you have to abide by, right? A lot of these agencies have signed contracts with people, and maybe they're allowed to take clients, maybe they're not, but you should, one would assume most corporations would have something in writing saying you can't just go and try to take all our customers, especially for these big publicly traded companies. But you're hiring people who have not only done it before, but they have a lot of relationships. The relationships bring a lot of revenue. This is assuming you're trying to go enterprise. SMB is a very different game.
Of course.
I'm not saying any of this stuff is applicable to SMB, but enterprise, I'm not talking about trying to close someone for $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. I'm talking about true enterprise where you ideally want contracts in, sure, hundreds of thousands, even, for software, that's great, but ideally millions of dollars.
Again, when I was asking my team for questions to discuss with you, one of the people pointed out that NP Digital doesn't kind of flat out say Neil Patel Digital.
Yes.
And it feels like you're trying to disassociate your agency with your own name. I put NP Digital into archive.org to see how your homepage changed. And last time I saw Neil Patel Digital written kind of in full on your homepage was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about this shift of kind of disassociating yourself?
People don't care about Neil Patel. We work with clients like LinkedIn. If I say, oh, look at Neil Patel, they don't care. They're like, we want to meet the people who are working on our account before you even close a contract. We want to know who they are. We want to see like their LinkedIn profiles, even if they're not LinkedIn as an organization. A lot of people want to see the employees' LinkedIn profiles. We want to see their history, what they've done in our space, and how they've solved our problems with other organizations before. That's all they care about.
You also mentioned in the tweet replying to someone about your SEO traffic that you work with companies like Forrester that do kind of grading of different agencies and suggest big enterprises who they should work with. So you say those things work a lot better for getting big enterprise customers than building your personal brand.
Correct. And you still got to do marketing within Forrester. Because you're meeting with the reps and the organizations, you got to do marketing and show how your company is amazing, put on a pitch and all this kind of stuff, build relationships with them over the years, do joint webinars, do articles, all this kind of stuff, which is marketing, and then build up a good reputation. Because then when they do industry reports, you're hoping you'll be included. There's no guarantee. And then hopefully you look good in those industry reports as well.
Okay.
And then big corporations pay for those industry reports. And then when they put out RFPs, right, requests for proposals, they usually just say, all right, here's everyone in the Forrester, performance marketing. Let's put a RFP out to them and hopefully we'll find a good agency from that list.
Okay, let's switch to the topic of personal brand.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if I'm getting mixed messages or if I'm hearing what I want to hear. For anyone listening, being a podcast interviewer is very hard. I've been interviewed on podcasts and it's much easier than interviewing people if you want to have like a really interesting conversation. So I'm not sure if I'm getting mixed messages or not, or if I'm just not hearing what you're telling me. But on one hand, I see you investing a lot of your time in your personal brand, in being out there. You said you have a team that posts content, creates content on your social media channels, on your blog, blah, blah, blah. You're doing lots of events. You do speaking. You're also optimizing speaking in a way to reach the clients that would work for your agency. On the other hand, you're saying how kind of self-sustainable your agency is and that people don't care about Neil Patel and it's NP Digital, not necessarily Neil Patel Digital. And you're saying how good your team is at attracting those clients and that you're hiring people who already have relationships with clients, who know how to build those relationships. So tell me, where does your personal brand sit with your agency?
So let me ask you a question first.
Yeah.
YouTube drives roughly 10% of your new signups.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you get rid of YouTube tomorrow?
Of course not. We would keep growing it and try to get...
Okay, but what if YouTube dropped to only 4%, some of the other channels were bigger and better? Would you stop doing YouTube?
If we have an existing resource that we see that it's kind of the trajectory is still, it's not going down while some other source is going up. For example, Twitter right now. I'm not sure what Elon has done to it.
But it's hard to get the engagement now.
I lost all my reach on Twitter. Yeah, I moved to LinkedIn. So it's kind of to answer your question. If we don't see this same...
No. But if you can do it profitably, if YouTube makes up 10% and tomorrow YouTube only makes up 4%.
But it still makes sense.
It makes profit. It's profitable. You would still do it.
Yeah, of course.
My personal brand generates revenue, nowhere near what it used to. And if people look how much I spend time creating content and blogging and all this kind of stuff, it's actually a lot less than it used to be. A lot of my time has shifted into in-person events, meeting with companies and building relationships with CMOs versus, hey, let me be on Instagram all the time. Although my team still posts for me, but we batch it. And even recently, they've just been getting the stuff from podcast episodes. Like I'll ask you for the raw file and like just chop it up and put it online. So it saves me time versus just creating dedicated content. And the reason being is it's still profitable. It doesn't generate the lion's share of our revenue. It's gone down as an overall percentage. We've never figured out how to get my personal brand to more than 10 million in annual revenue. Right? And you can say, oh, if you're selling courses and stuff, sure, a lot of that drives revenue, but some of it's ads. And you can say, how do you attribute it? Because you're using me in a video and it helps, but it is ads. So how do you attribute it? Right? It's a fuzzy area or gray area. But the way we look at it is the personal brand keeps making up a smaller and smaller percentage. But where it helps is sometimes getting in the door, where maybe one of the CMOs will want to meet with me or VPs or have me do a talk to their internal team about some of the cool strategies they're seeing. So it helps us get in the door so we maintain the personal brand. But getting in the door doesn't mean you're going to get a contract. It just means they got you to come into, Procter & Gamble in Brazil, like they did. They're like, yeah, we'd love to have Neil here. They had me give a speech, generated $0 in revenue. No RFPs, no future considerment, $0. The Procter & Gamble team aren't mean. They didn't do anything wrong. They did not say they're going to give us revenue. They didn't promise anything. We reached out to them to try to get the meeting. They were able to give us a meeting and we educated them on a lot of marketing stuff. And we answered a lot of their team's questions on all forms of marketing on their struggles. Still didn't get a contract. You get what I mean? A lot of times it just gets us in the door. Doesn't mean anything on revenue. But you know what? I've done meetings with other organizations where it gets us in the door, doesn't get us any contracts, and you could say that's a waste of time. But I've done many of these, and some of them have created revenue, and the revenue outweighs the cost. Not everything you do is going to hit and make money. Some of it is a numbers game. But I am meeting with the right people, right organizations that are decision makers. And what we find is a lot of those people don't give us a contract, but 3 years later, they're doing a new job and they wanted to work with you. They couldn't get it approved and they're able to work with you there.
I'm definitely not asking you to put the ROI on your personal brand.
Yeah. But I'm giving you roughly, right? 10 million
but
a year,
I want to
roughly.
understand your thinking process, because when you do something, you definitely have an idea of why you're doing it and how kind of the mechanics of it later work. It's interesting that you mentioned CMOs or VPs who might know you and might want to connect with you and talk, and this gets you foot in the door. This is kind of what I'm trying to optimize this very podcast for. I'm trying for it to be quite high level. You see, we're not talking about what's new in SEO right now, but I want to look at the broader business, how to get clients, those kinds of things, and how the businesses that we serve as a software, how they're growing, what kind of challenges they're having. But you mentioned those pretty high level profiles, and one comment I saw on Reddit about you, there's plenty, of course, he's a good marketer that markets to non-marketers and teaches them basics. And I think there's a little bit true to that, because as I was reviewing your content, a lot of this content is it's not kind of strategic, it's tactical. Some of these things from this podcast, they will chop pretty strategic things, but a lot of the things you're sharing is very kind of tactical. Go there, do this, click this button.
Yes, minus this podcast episode, but yes, most of my content online is very tactical. But if you look at most of my presentations and webinars recently, the newer stuff, most of it is theory and strategy and trends and data, like charts on what we're seeing and trends, because that's what big corporations want. The reason we also create the basic content is in a big organization, the majority of the people who work are not C-level executives or VPs. They're junior marketers. They learn. They do research, Ahrefs, HubSpot, me, Moz, wherever it may be, SEMrush, to get data or to learn. Over time, 10 years, 15 years, these people keep getting promoted, leave companies. They have some sort of loyalty because they learn stuff with you. And hopefully some of that translates, I'll knock on wood for good luck, translates into them potentially hiring you or telling other people about you. That's why we still do some of the basic content.
So, you're basically trying to reach both audiences. You're trying to reach how this person frames non-marketers. I wouldn't necessarily say this non-marketers, because non-marketers are not even interested in marketing. Junior marketers,
yes.
You want to reach them because, like you said, they work in big corporations and they can be your advocates then when the time comes to hire an agency to work with them. And B, because some of them work in also small businesses and they can just go to their boss or manager and say, I want to hire an agency. I know Neil Patel has one which works with small businesses. So actually you do see your personal brand as driving both. On one hand, you create content to reach the junior marketers. On the other hand, you also, like you said, create content for higher level people.
Yes. And we're trying to focus on more and more the team creating content, less me. And we're hoping within 5 to 10 years it transitions. I know that's a long time frame, but we really try to think in 5 to 10 year increments. We try not to think in, 1 or 2 year increments. Because it's like, if we talk about your YouTube strategy, if you thought about it in a 1 year increment, it wouldn't have been successful. Even 2 years, not that great. 5+ years, look at YouTube now. But it takes so much goodwill of people hearing from you for so many years, getting free education, and now they sign up from you, not because they watched a YouTube video today and signed up. It's they heard about you from YouTube over the last 6-7 years, and then eventually they signed up.
Tim, that's a great question. That's a great topic. Let's talk about it. Do you know Nathan Barry from ConvertKit?
Yeah.
Now Kit?
I don't know him well, but I've met him up in person a few times and talked to him over the phone. Good guy.
Yeah, I unfortunately haven't met him in person, but communicated with him online quite a bit. I was listening to his podcast interview. I don't remember who was the guest, but they talked about personal branding. And what he said that he has this business, ConvertKit, which is SaaS. And there's, I don't remember how many people he has there, 60, 70, doesn't matter. And he has his quote unquote business as in personal brand. And he said only one person is working on his personal brand to create all these like podcast clips, social posts, yada, yada, yada. Let's talk about your team. Because again, when people are discussing you on social media, the stuff you post, some of them come and say, do you really think that Neil is posting like 100% of everything that he posts on social media? Definitely, you would have some ideas that only you could share and you would tweet them, but you need to post consistently, so the team is doing a lot of that work for you. So tell me about your personal brand team, how many people there are, and what are their roles?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't run marketing for my own brand. A guy named Salo, who's in Brazil, runs everything.
Wow. Okay.
But we have enough people. We're not a big company, but we have enough people globally where I don't know everyone and I don't know what everyone is doing. It's too hard. Like I was at an event the other day in Kansas City and someone comes up and says, hi. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? And they're like, I'm so-and-so, pleasure to meet you. What do you do? They're like, I've been working for you for 3 years.
Oh.
And I felt bad and I want to get to know everyone, but globally it is too hard for me to get to know everyone, right? Like it's just too many people.
Yeah. Interesting. So you don't even know how much what's your monthly spend on your personal brand. It's kind of buried somewhere in your other business.
It goes into marketing. It rolls up, right?
It's part of the agency. It's part of the agency because you have
part of the parent company, NP Digital. But yes,
NP Digital. It also owns Ubersuggest, Answer the Public.
Got it. Yes. So it depends what division you want to consider. It's like, even though this is not exactly, but like people know Microsoft for Office and Word, but they also own that gaming company. I don't play video games. Warcraft, Warlord or something like that. Activision Blizzard. They own Activision Blizzard. They bought them out, right? Xbox.
Yeah.
Another one. Right? It's just like everything just rolls up. Where that finance person is taking the budget from, I don't know. Which division he charges what to, I don't know. Like we probably have 30, 40 people in finance globally. I don't know what they're dividing money into for different categories. They just do it.
Okay, well, it's still not very tactical because what I've noticed briefly scrolling through your LinkedIn, all the videos that you're posting are basically clips from existing interviews. You don't do what's the word, bespoke? Like where you...
Sometimes I do. I do bespoke, and sorry to cut you off, but I do bespoke 2 to 3 times max a month and only 1 hour a session. Because a lot of times when we host webinars and stuff, my team needs me to read a teleprompter to create marketing material specifically for the ad or webinar. So then at the same time, the team will just ask me random questions and I'll look into a camera and record or talk to them while the camera is recording me. And we consider that bespoke content just for social. Like, hey, this would be great for social. Let's talk about this new feature on TikTok, etc. But it's when I have time. So it's only 2 to 3 times a month because I travel almost every single week.
Because couple years ago, I met Eric Siu at SaaS Talk, I think it was in Dublin. And the whole thread throughout the conference, it was about SaaS, but people wanted to talk about content, creating a media company and how important it is. And there was a pretty heavy emphasis on the fact that, a lot of people want to take the easy route, like record a conversation like that, then cut it into shorts, reels, or whatever, post them and expect them to perform incredibly well.
Yeah.
But it seems that the advice from the actual creators who are doing well on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram is that you have to engineer every specific piece of content. Yeah, you can be lucky and you can say something very, very well, very succinctly during the interview and it would perform well, but more often it doesn't. So you have to create those things bespoke. And what I also mentioned is that your team, I didn't see this from anyone else, but I don't frankly follow that many people, to be honest. They would take the same video and they would post it with a different LinkedIn description within like a week from the previous one. And actually both would perform well, which was surprising. I was like, whoa, this is the same video, just introduced differently, and people still commenting, people still resharing, people like that. So I wonder how involved are you in this strategy of these people to take care of your social media accounts? Because I know, like, I was following Gary Vee at some point, not anymore because like you don't have time to follow everyone. But again, Gary Vee is active on every platform. And yeah, he definitely does create some of this content himself, but then his team has to put out a lot of the stuff based on his talks, based on his meetings, based on what he said. So I don't remember if I ever saw a video of how involved he is in kind of coaching the team, but I wonder what's your take on it? Do you meet with them from time to time and tell them, oh, like, I don't want you to be posting this video 2 times, or like you posted this video 2 times and it performed well, good job?
So I didn't even know they posted the same video 2 times. I learned it from the first time for you, but I'm not going to go hit up the team being like, good job or bad job. I just let them do their thing. We typically give our department heads KPIs. And if they're hitting the KPIs, we let them do what they want to do. There's many different ways to market. You've marketed Ahrefs sometimes in similar ways to what we have, strategies. And in other ways, you do different marketing strategies than us, correct? Like, I don't think you guys are doing tons of in-person events throughout the world. You may have your own conference. I don't know if
We're just starting this,
So, but there's different ways to market. And it's too hard to tell people, it's not hard, but it's a bad way to run a business to say your way is bad, your way is right. Because there's many different ways to skin a cat. Companies all grow in different ways and strategies. What we more so look at is there's a number you're trying to achieve, quarterly numbers or annual numbers. What do you need to do to achieve those numbers? And what are the budgets you need to give them? And what profitability numbers do people need to hit? And let them decide how they want to do things to achieve those numbers. You or I may disagree with someone's strategy, but if they hit the numbers, who cares? Let them go and do it their way. There's no other way to run a company, to micromanage and tell people it has to be done this way or this other way. You're not going to scale and create a big organization if you do it that way. And this is why the philosophy I have is, look, let them leverage your strategy. If they're not hitting numbers, then have a talk and analyze what's wrong and try to help them and figure it out. And then if they can't do it, and if they continually fail missing numbers and they're not doing a good job, you know, you go through process with HR and eventually you look for a replacement and you put in someone else. I know that sounds bad and ruthless, but that is the way the corporate world works.
I will preface that with saying that a lot of my motivation for doing this podcast comes for me to learn stuff from guests and figure things out. So I'm not necessarily even thinking about like if it is relevant to audience or not. I'm just hoping that things are interesting to me, are interesting to audience. And I'm personally, with my personal brand, at a stage where I finally have resources to hire people to help me. But there's this, I don't know, dilemma, dichotomy, or whatever. If I let someone else post something on my social accounts for me, first of all, they might post something that I don't necessarily agree with, or not, let's say, smart. If I consider myself, I'm a smart marketer, I need to post some smart things, and they would post something trivial. Oh my God, how it would make me look. Like let me finish. On the other hand, so it's just like about, I think I can post the best content because I have the most experience. I think I understand each social network better, which is not necessarily true, but I feel like I can post cool stuff. This is why I have to be posting myself. On the other hand, so they just might not post something that is up to my standards without any repercussions other than low engagement. On the other hand, there's this freaking thing called criticism. And the bigger you get, the more people criticize you. I'm being criticized a little. Someone like Rand Fishkin is criticized a lot more than I do because he's more known. I think you're more known than Rand Fishkin. You're criticized even more. And we're not getting into the Justin Biebers of the world because it's or like Elon Musk is the god of like
criticism. Everyone.
Yeah, I was. This is something I'm telling everyone when we're discussing Elon Musk. If Elon Musk and his team had a goal of tweeting something that is not controversial in any way, so to make everyone agree, can he tweet specifically something where every one of his following say, I agree? That's not possible.
He can put a dog out and be like, cute dog, and someone's going to say, that's ugly.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, how are you dealing with that? How are you dealing with the fact that other people run your social media accounts, and you might say, not you, but your social media account can say something trivial, and people would bounce and, oh, Neil Patel, he's not as smart. But how do you deal with that criticism?
So you have rules set in place on what they're allowed or not allowed to do. If it's, hey, you already posted this and you're just rephrasing it, no problem. That's not a big deal. They're just rephrasing your own stuff. My team is not able to just go post something random on X or LinkedIn or something that doesn't necessarily fit the general rules that the team has given them that I approved over the many years ago, right? So it roughly fits in line with the brand and all that kind of stuff. What you can't do though, you can pick and select and have them choose every little thing. But sometimes, and I would say you're a great marketer, you're amazing at what you do.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know how, if I'm not mistaken, I don't need to know the deal you have with Ahrefs, but if I'm not mistaken, there's only one founder in Ahrefs, right? Yeah. But they were much smaller when you first joined. And I look at you, doesn't matter what you're called internally, as one of the co-founders of Ahrefs. You were here so early, you helped really create what is there today. And just like you, there's probably some people like the head engineer or head product person who is, I would probably consider one of the co-founders, even though no one really knows them, but they're one of the main reasons, including you, for the success of the company today. This is just my feedback from, outsider's perspective. If you look at your ROI of your time and what you've generated in revenue, okay, over the years from Ahrefs' growth from being really small, because I don't know how big they were when you joined, but let's call it a few $1 million or $5 million.
It was
or something
less
small.
than 10.
Yeah. To being a 9+ figure company. Your time is valuable. Your impact, along with other people's impact, and it doesn't matter how great someone is as a marketer, it is a team effort, really grew the business. If you micromanage everything and you told Sam what he could or could not do, you would not grow as fast. Some of the marketing initiatives you have, I don't know you're in Sam's relationship.
No, Sam is very self-sufficient. He's amazing.
But he doesn't ask you for permission for everything. A lot of times he's just probably doing things on his own that he thinks works.
Yeah, he might check in with me on some like general things.
Correct.
But it's very rarely that I would say, oh, I disagree. It's just like we're on the same page. So yeah, I don't manage him.
And you have a great personal brand, but look at a personal brand as a marketing channel. Disassociate the emotional connection that you have with your own personal brand. If you just look at it in a cold way, black and white, it's another channel that can drive revenue. And if you run it in a similar way, it makes it easier to look at it from a formulaic perspective, spreadsheet perspective, than it does that I'm super attached to my own personal brand. Now, I'm not trying to say that in a way where someone shouldn't care. I do think people should care whether it's a corporate brand or a personal brand. Like the lady I gave you as an example of me helping her out when she paid $900 a month. But that had nothing to do with she paid NP Digital. It had everything to do with someone on my team did something they weren't supposed to. That's my fault. That's not their fault. They worked for me. The buck really does stop with me. That's my problem to solve. And that's someone's life savings who doesn't have a ton of money. That's not like you took $1,000 from Microsoft. They make more in interest in 1 minute than, that money. Yeah. They wouldn't care, right? And I'm not saying you should screw people over, but I'm saying in that aspect, it's not about Neil's reputation or Tim's reputation or Ahrefs' reputation. It's about doing the right thing as a human, right? And you just really got to look at people for what they are as human beings, and you can't screw them over. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to piss people off. You apologize, but you're not going to please everyone. Like the amount of bad press I've seen on myself on the internet is ridiculous. Easier to ignore it. Eric sends me a lot of it. And I'm like, dude, don't send it. Easier not to see it and look at it. Some of it does hurt, being honest, of course, right? And, on the corporate side, I bet you when you see people complain about Ahrefs and pricing and bashing you guys, you've been here so early. You love the brand. Some of it has to get to you and hurt. We're humans. But you got to learn to disassociate and not let those people ruin your day or your life. And you're doing what's best for your business and future customers. Because if you can grow and do the right things, you can reinvest in more things to make the product and service better. You can also spin up new projects like a search engine that you guys believe will have a better impact on the future, right? Some of these projects will work out really well and benefit you and your customers. Some of them won't. It's like saying Elon Musk sends rockets into space. He's a failure because a lot of them have failed. No, a lot of those failures have led him to a lot of these successes. And some people say today, he does a lot of stuff that sucks and breaks and this product sucks. No one's going to bat 100%. You look at Facebook's first Oculus devices, no one really cared for them. More people that I know talked about the Apple Vision Pro. No one I know talks about Apple Vision Pro anymore. But Facebook's last devices where there were goggles, like glasses, that was really cool. Mm-hmm. It's not ready for prime time, but it's like, all right, they may create something that eventually will work out that I would love to wear, right? Not everything is going to be a hit, and you got to try a lot of things and look at your personal brand as another marketing channel. And sometimes things will work, sometimes it won't, but try not to let it get to you. Because if you did, it's going to ruin your day. You're going to go home to your wife and your kids, and you're not going to be the same. And that kind of stuff shouldn't impact them, because in the grand scheme of things, I don't need to know Ahrefs numbers. But overall, the business does well. From everyone I know who's worked for you guys, I don't know a ton of people, but I know a few. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but you guys are on the other side of the world. I don't know as many people who live in Singapore. You guys treat people well. You have a great culture. Your founder, I don't think is too people facing. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think there's people for all different types of roles. I think you're more of the people facing role within the Ahrefs organization. And you got to just do you and got to make it work and not let everything bother you.
It's very hard. So I've been kind of a public person online for at least 10 years. I've been trying to build my personal brand, and I'm maybe 10% of Neil Patel of where you are with your personal brand. And even at that level, I get some negative comments, and I just cannot ignore them. I just cannot. And this makes me think of there are different ideas of what I can do to promote myself, because personal brand is a brand, and brand lives on visibility. So how visible you are. I have an interesting comment. I have an interesting question about this, but we'll get to it later. So there's Nathan Letka. You also probably know Nathan Letka. And I saw him say on one of his webinars that people shouldn't be afraid to put themselves out there. If someone is calling you, self-centered or vain, tell them to look at Nathan Letka, because I'm printing huge printouts of myself and putting them in the expo area of the conferences. I'm putting myself, my photo on my books, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the more you do it, the more people would criticize you. And to a certain point, you can kind of cross the line, and I'm not sure at which level you can ruin your reputation, or can you even ruin your reputation, or this phrase any PR is good PR?
No, I think you could ruin your reputation. look at like Bernie
Lopez.
Madoff.
Let's discuss
Bernie Madoff, right? The guy who did the Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
I think is part of like the NASDAQ or one of the stock exchanges or something. You can tarnish your reputation. I'm giving you an extreme example, right? But
you mentioned Tai Lopez.
Sure.
What do you think of his reputation?
I try not to get involved in deciding if someone has a good reputation or a bad reputation. I think people should do what's best for them and figure out what works for them and makes them happy.
But basically, because you said in the beginning of this interview that I think he suggested you to do something together and you were not opposed
not him,
to it.
his team.
Anyway, so you were kind of okay to kind of connect your brand to his brand.
Or we didn't do it.
You didn't do it. So this is again what I'm asking you about. We also have like different opportunities to work with different people, and these people have large audiences. But what would it do to our reputation, to our brand? And same with the marketing that we're doing. Some of the marketing can be very divisive. And what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, the best performing posts are kind of where you can clash two opinions together, where people would argue with you, where people would argue with each other. This performs best on LinkedIn, and some people are just baiting it.
Yes.
So, yeah, I wonder your look at it, how far you personally can go with kind of causing that contention to propel your brand forward.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it as like Tai Lopez. I don't know when the date was, but maybe 5-6 years ago, I've done a podcast interview with him. Right. And when he was doing the Here in My Garage videos, I don't know if you ever saw that. A long time, I did a podcast interview with him. Now, when I said no to him recently, I haven't looked up Tai Lopez and what he's doing, or when my team said no, to look if Tai is perceived in a positive or a negative light. It was more so his audience isn't our ideal customer. I'm not saying his audience is bad. It's just not our ideal customer. So we pick and choose time because I only have so much time in the day. Can you use people to propel your brand? Can you use it to grow or put you in a negative light? What you'll find is most of these people who have a positive brand doing something with you could give you a quick hit. It's not going to make you big enough where it makes you really make that much more revenue. And the people who are negative, it's not going to do much to you where it's going to really make you lose a lot of revenue. It doesn't really move the needle as much as people think.
Another question about growing your brand and awareness is you are one of a very few, I cannot even name too many people who would use the image of yourself, your photo, so kind of profusely, because Ubersuggest, there were lots of pictures on you on the pricing page. There was like you kind of in a rage pose, like clearly attracting attention to the fact so that people would notice, but you're using yourself. The first thing you did when acquiring Answer the Public,
put my image. Yeah.
Put your image. Lots of people were making fun. I think I even tweeted something. I don't remember what I tweeted, but I definitely like attracted attention to the fact that you did it, because I knew that even for me tweeting that you have like your image on Answer the Public, I would get engagement of this. But yeah, I didn't tweet anything bad.
You could have. I don't mind though.
No. Wait, where was I going with it? Yeah, and I'm quite shy.
Yes.
Of putting my image on things to kind of promote myself. So how do you deal with that? What's your look at this?
So when I started my agency, it was called Neil Patel Digital. We eventually switched it to NP Digital to get away from Neil Patel. When we acquire companies, a lot of people don't associate that company with our corporation. Even if you put, Answer the Public, an NP Digital company, most people really don't see it. Yeah. Even if you do a blog post, even a year later, a lot of people don't see it. So when we add the image, it helps tie in the brands more, and then it ends up generating us more revenue from other areas. So when we bought Answer the Public, okay, we overpaid for that business. And the banker claimed there's so many people looking at them. Like, I don't believe it. But we overpaid for the business. We knew it. Where they were making money, and they weren't making a lot of money at that time. It was only like 100,000 a month and 1.2, somewhere around there in profit a year. I'm rounding, but it was a while ago. I don't know the exact number. I know it was more than $1 million, less than 1.2. And they said they had no employees. So if you're saying you're doing 1 to 1.2 in profit, you can't run a business with no employees. Even in SaaS, you have to do at least one refund a month. You need a person for this. You need support. You need engineers. So it wasn't making anywhere near there, but we paid a multiple. We bought it for 8.6. So we bought it for its fake profit. And I say fake because the profit drastically went down more than half the next day we bought it. So we really overpaid for it. And their revenue was pretty much all profit. They were saying we have revenue and other than servers, the rest is profit. It wasn't that bad, but close enough to it. And we didn't care because we knew the type of companies that were signing up for the tool and how many of them could be agency customers because how many of them were enterprise brands that we can build relationships with. So the reason for the picture was a quick association to the agency brand, because when you spend 8.6 for something that doesn't really make more than, call it 600 grand a year in profit, you got to make back your money somehow. And we were able to make our money back really fast, but that is why we did that.
Did you know we were in conversation of acquiring them as well?
You and HubSpot, that's what they claim. HubSpot. Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't justify
the money.
Yeah, because for us, we didn't feel that we can convert their customers into customers, Ahrefs that good. So for you, it made more sense to acquire them. Back to personal brand. I don't remember the details, but at some point you did a campaign where some influencers were holding "Who is Neil Patel" sign to make people search for you or something. Can you remind me what was this campaign and why did you do it?
Yeah, we had models all over the world holding up signs that saying "Who's Neil Patel." The one that did the best that I recall, the guy ended up deleting it because some people you only post for them to pay for like a day or 2 days or a week, was this buff dude, okay? Like really buffed and jack, male model on Instagram. And he put Neil Patel on his chest and I'm not buff, so I can't do it. He was able to make his chest bounce up and down. So my name started going up and down. And but it started causing people to Google for my name, increasing brand queries, which then increased my rankings on Google for a lot of terms. Because one of the factors of Google's rankings, as you know, is brand queries. Yeah.
So that was an SEO experiment?
Yes.
So you didn't do this to kind of propel your personal brand forward? It was more
to get the higher rankings, and we generated a crap load of leads. Because we were doing a simple calculation of how much it costs to generate ads for terms like digital marketing agency, SEO, etc. Our ranking shot up. No joke, I don't know how much we spent on that campaign in total because we did it in batches, but it couldn't have been more than a few $100,000 or $300,000-$400,000. It wasn't like a ton of money for at least our size in the grand scheme of things, because the money was also spread out over time. And I'm taking a guess on the spend, but let's go with that. The amount of money we saved on pay-per-click was just drastic. The problem, though, over time that we face with it is ranking for terms, because we shot up really high for terms like digital marketing after, and it stayed for like more than a year. The problems with a lot of those terms was it wasn't driving enterprise business for us. It's like very rare for like Microsoft to be like, let me Google digital marketing and hire a digital marketing agency by the. It's just, they're not going to do it. They're not going to Google digital marketing agency and then be like, let me find which agency I should hire. When Microsoft themselves are such a big corporation, they have a whole department that deals with internal communication with external agencies to make sure relationships don't get soured. Like they literally have a whole department that just deals with that. They're not going to Google digital marketing and sign $1 million contract.
Speaking of brand searches that can, in theory, potentially drive enterprise customers, there was a case where your agency tweeted some stats about X. I'm not sure if it was purposeful or not.
No.
Then this Dogecoin account took those ads. Then Elon retweeted it. And I think even in Elon's tweet, he mentioned NP Digital.
I don't know if he mentioned it or if it was in the screenshot, maybe one or the other. Because I think he took the screenshot from that Doge guy or Doge something.
Maybe the Doge thing had it. But yeah, you discussed this with Eric on your podcast shortly after it happened. So you said we didn't see yet any uplift. it did nothing.
Did nothing. That's what I'm saying. Like, cool. If a Microsoft sees it, you think they want to hire us as an agency because they're like, no one cares about it. Don't get me wrong. It's great branding. The amount of text messages I got when he did it, like no joke, I probably got over 200 text messages from Elon's suite. 200
Maybe
plus.
it's good for retention of your clients.
Clients only care about results.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say they only care and that's bad. I think that's a good thing. They're paying us for results. If they're not going to get results, they shouldn't keep paying us.
Since we're talking about Eric, you have a show together.
Uh-huh.
And it seems that your role in this show is to just come talk to him, and then everything else, all the production, all the posting is on him, right? Because your own YouTube channel, I saw that it was inactive for 9 months, and just recently you published a new video.
We've been publishing shorts on YouTube. We don't publish tons of long form videos on YouTube. We've been publishing in that 9 months short form videos, or the team should. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure they're still posting short form videos on a monthly basis.
Because the competition on long form is very high.
So you guys know YouTube's algorithm very well. It's a lot of things like engagement,
Yeah.
got to keep creating content, and you got to create content natively for YouTube and
Yes.
plan it out and go to a space and start recording. When we started looking at the ROI of my time and the money YouTube was returning, we couldn't make the math work out. Versus me flying to Singapore and doing 3 sessions in one day with existing customers and new customers, the ROI is just so much larger that we have to pick and choose. And we didn't have to do this earlier, but then I had kids 5 years ago. That's, if you look at a lot of what I've done for personal branding, it started changing around 5 years ago because my life changed 5 years ago and I had to start having a balance. If it wasn't for that, I would just try to do everything. And then I had a second kid, and then you really have to balance. You get what I mean, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we
I have
really
2
do
kids
try
as
to
well.
I try to put metrics on everything. And I'm not saying if I created YouTube videos today, I would be the most popular, I would do better than everyone else. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when we looked at it, it was really hard for us to generate enterprise revenue from it.
So how often do you record with Eric? Is it like once a month?
Once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah.
You probably live nearby or something?
It's not always in person. So I did Friday with him. I think I was in Malaysia when I recorded, and I just woke up in the middle of the night. It was Thursday, but going on to Friday night, and I recorded with him. And then, or was it Thursday? Either way, I recorded one of the days, his afternoon, my nighttime. And then, he wants to record again, I think sometime this week, Monday or Tuesday at nighttime here. I think Monday nighttime I had to record with him again. But it helps with the other content and we keep it going. And Eric's a friend. I don't know what the podcast generates from an ROI perspective. I don't look into it. I look at Eric as a friend and the real reason I do a podcast. I have fun giving back to the community. I don't think I know everything and there's much smarter people than me, but whatever I can give back, I try. And 2, Eric's a really good friend where I just got to catch up with him 5 to 10 minutes before the podcast and usually like 10 minutes after, and we talk throughout the week as well, just about random stuff. But it's just good to catch up with your friends.
Back to my question about a lot of this content is very tactical. Where do you learn all that stuff? Do you, once a week talk to your team and ask them what are some interesting things that you're doing? Because actually, a lot of the tactical things that you're sharing are pretty unique. Like when I would listen to some, like you'll be speaking at a conference, I'm attending this conference, I will surely attend your talk, and I'm sure that I'm going to learn something from you. Where do you learn those things? Being like the top level operator, so you're not necessarily in the weeds doing all that stuff, but still you know a lot of these tactical things.
Sure. So I read a lot. When I say I read a lot, I probably read for 2-3 hours a day minimum. And everything from online articles to books. My team runs a lot of experiments, so I see a lot of data. And when you're working with so many accounts globally and you have a lot of people, you see a ton of data. 3, we scrape data from the web like you guys and buy data and you slice and dice it and you're seeing patterns there too. It's not always 100%. Like when we make inferences on Google, there's no way we can track every single search on Google to really know that hey, this is the most up and coming popular keyword on Google. It's like, there's just no way to really know, right? But we try to do our best. And I myself still do marketing here and there, and I'm tracking data and running experiments, and it's fun for me. Not because of a revenue standpoint, or not because I need to still stay relevant or anything. I genuinely enjoy marketing. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I have fun doing it. I don't have all the time in the world to do it day in and day out, and that being the only thing I do, before I was able to. But yeah, that's how I learn everything. And if I had to pick the biggest one, it would be just working on so many client accounts, and we're running so many experiments. We see trends and patterns really fast from that.
Yeah, I would imagine that with the size of your agency, you definitely get exposed to a lot of what they're trying to do, what is working, what is not. Your typical week, what kind of meetings do you have where you would get those kinds of tactical insights? Who are you like having meetings with to learn about those things?
Sure. So we do global meetings where people are sharing the latest tactics and strategies that people are testing out in different divisions.
Between divisions.
Yeah, because we're in either 18 or 19 or 20 countries that we have offices in. So there are different people in different regions are sharing with each other on phone calls.
Wow.
And I join a lot of them and I learn a lot.
Yeah, this is very cool. Okay, I saved one of the best topics for last.
right.
Ubersuggest.
Uh-huh.
Because famously, when you acquired, you were saying something along the lines, I'm going to make it free. I'm going to it's not a direct quote, but something like, I'm going to eclipse Ahrefs because it would be free. Everyone would be using me. How's Ubersuggest doing?
It's doing good. We did not eclipse SEMrush and Ahrefs. That was our goal. I'll be honest. It was a very hard goal. We got traffic and a ton of it. I don't think that was a hard part. If you're for free, you can get tons and tons. I learned one big problem with creating an SEO product fully for free. And I would say we do more for free than most people with Answer the Public, Ubersuggest, because we have a different monetization model, right? When I started going for free and people kept requesting more features, because that was based on what I was doing, the cost to gather data was just expensive. And there was at one point, we didn't even have the data you guys had or SEMrush had, and our bills were a little bit more than $350,000 a month. So then when you start going back of the napkin math to start doing what everyone's doing and scraping the web, it adds up to a pretty penny, which doesn't become sustainable. And we were monetizing it eventually back end from agency, but we started slowly charging to make up for our costs. And our goal for Ubersuggest and Answer the Public is to run them at break even. We do run them profitably. We do more than break even. They grow quite nicely. They're still growing year over year. So it's going well. But the main KPI for the software tools is how many agency customers do we get from them on an annual basis or quarterly or whatnot.
And yet Ubersuggest, first of all, you have lifetime deal. I think outside of AppSumo, of course, you're the only SaaS software that I know, or at least in our market where like we compete, that offers a lifetime deal. And yesterday or the day before yesterday, when I went to the pricing page to see if you still have this screaming photo of you, you don't, because there's some 50% something deal. So you're heavily discounting it.
That I don't know because I haven't been to the pricing page in a long time, but it could be, or it could be an A/B test version, or it could be depending on which country you're coming from, because we have different currencies and stuff. I know you guys
Singapore is doing pretty well, I would imagine, and I was opening the page from Singapore.
Yeah. So, but I know they do promotions and things like that. Our model is we're going after lower paying customers who can't afford SEMrush and Ahrefs. That is the playbook for us with Ubersuggest and Answer the Public. And a very specific reason. So let's say you look for enterprise customers. Ideally, when I look at SEMrush and you guys, I don't know what the percentage is, but a large chunk of your revenue must come from agencies when you look at consistently over time. I'm not saying the majority, but it must make up a large chunk, right? And when you look at these agencies, they're great. Our ideal customer, though, is not an agency. It's a company hiring us. Now, you also want enterprise customers like getting a Microsoft to have a lot of accounts, right? Whether someone spends $100 with you a month or $1,000 with you a month, I don't know the current pricing, but let's just go with 100 or 1,000. It's probably roughly in that ballpark. You probably have more enterprise plans as well. Someone has to get approval at Microsoft. If you're an employee in marketing, you cannot just go and spend $100 a month. Even if you have a credit card, you usually are not allowed to spend $100 a month. You know what happens when you're free? You get a lot of those Microsoft users using you. Whether someone says Ahrefs is better or Ubersuggest is better, or SEMrush is better, or someone's data is better, I have the solution that person can use and doesn't have to get approval from their boss. Again, my monetization model is different. If they're getting approval from their boss, everything is in budgets. Just because Microsoft does, let's round and say 20 billion a quarter. I'm rounding, I haven't looked at their earnings in a while, but let's just say 80 billion a year. Just because they make 80 billion a year doesn't mean people in an organization can spend freely. I don't know your guys' numbers, but you guys must be profitable or have great margins and make millions and millions and millions in profit. I'm assuming you agree with this statement. Doesn't mean someone in this company can just randomly spend money without asking. Would you agree with that?
No.
They have to ask, correct?
Yeah.
And that's how most corporations are run. So it's our feeder of getting into corporations and larger brands using us, as well as a lot of SMBs, and the smaller percentages, larger brands. And then it gives us ammunition to reach out to them, build relationships with them, and then eventually a year or two, hopefully land an enterprise deal with that person. It's a very long model.
So how much is Ubersuggest doing in revenue?
A good amount, but it's not as big as Ahrefs.
Well, I can extrapolate if you said that your agency is over 100, and you said that it's around like 60 to 70%, and the rest is software. Answer the public is not doing a lot. I would estimate around like 30 to 40, but that seems a lot for Ubersuggest.
But it depends. How big is our agency or not? We also spend a lot of money acquiring companies. We at least acquire a company roughly. Our goal is at least once a quarter, right? So what is a revenue profile and where is it coming from?
Do you have an end goal in mind with NP Digital, with your software businesses? Are you looking to work on this for, I don't know, another 10 years and sell it somewhere? Are you looking to go IPO? People ask us all the time, is Ahrefs going to IPO one day? I say we don't have any conversations like that. What's your, where are you heading with your businesses?
So similar to you guys, I bet you get reached out a lot to private equity who's trying to buy you.
Yeah.
You also get reached out to strategic buyers who are interested in buying you. We have a guy named Carlos who runs all of our M&A team. Some of the calls, maybe he has conversations with. A lot of the calls we actually do with private equity, we love talking to them, not because we want to sell, but they talk to a lot of our competitors, so it allows us to learn. But honestly, we've had a lot of offers over the years. Don't care to do anything. I don't have this thing where I'm like, I gotta do this. I just am enjoying life and I'm happy with what it is. I know I don't want to go public. We've had offers of people trying to take us public. We've talked to Goldman Sachs before about it, and I went down that path because SEMrush went public, and I was like, oh, this could be a good opportunity. And I was like, man, this looks miserable. And I'm not saying SEMrush is doing bad or good, but their stock price has gone up and down, which you've seen. The businesses has grown, but still you're dealing with public markets.
Yeah.
I don't want the pressure of someone telling me and being like, oh, you got to do this, or you're not doing this. I like when, I have a bad quarter and I can still do whatever I want. And if you look at Ahrefs from where you started to where you are now, you've had to had at least one quarter where something doesn't go the way you want or something goes wrong. You agree with this?
Yeah.
If not more. This is business. Not everything is just, everyone thinks entrepreneurship, you started at, $1 million and you're 9 figures and everything just goes up and to the right. It doesn't work that way. And you know that very well. I like how when there's bad times, like the economy goes bad and signups decrease or whatever it may be, at least we don't have someone else to answer to. It's the same reason why we haven't taken on investors. We've also gotten hit up from sovereign wealth funds. Sovereign wealth funds are a little bit more flexible. Singapore has some great sovereign wealth funds, and you guys are here if you're ever looking to get money from Singapore. If you want an intro, I can introduce you to their sovereign wealth fund. They also have Temasek, which is not really a sovereign wealth fund, but it kind of operates like one too. But if you look at some of these, they're more quiet money where they'll buy like 5-10% of your business, and they usually just stay out of your way and you don't really have to communicate much with them. That's pretty good money, but you still then have someone else on your cap table and you have someone to answer to. And then selling 100%, we have an option for that, but like, I know this sounds silly. I have purpose in life. I'm not talking about the Neil Patel Brown. I have purpose in life and like a team, and I'm getting stuff done. And I have purpose in which I'm trying to like build a bigger company than the holding companies, which is going to be very hard. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to beat them, but I'm having fun along the way. So I don't really care about the rest, and I'm making money. Yes, sometimes are bad. Like economically, we don't do as well right now compared to what we did 2 years ago. We were a much more profitable company, but we choose in this bad market to reinvest way more money and double down because we know when things get better, we'll be in a better position. But we chose to do that. Just like you guys chose to take some of your profits and build a search engine, right? And we like how we have no one to answer to because we can do whatever we feel is best for the business 10 years from now versus operating on what we need to show someone as a return next quarter, next year.
We're almost out of time, but last question, which my team also asked me to ask you. You have this pretty famous article, how spending 162,000 on clothes made me 692,000, something along these lines. And I cannot not notice that you have a nice watch. So I wonder how you think right now about spending on your looks. And now that you're like going around the world, meeting with those clients, with those customers, is it something that is useful within the kind of big enterprise world?
So I think we have the same shoes. What shoe brand is that? Xenia?
Xenia, da.
Yeah, I have second skin Xenia shoes. They're very comfortable, right?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Okay. So we have, so some things I'll spend money on like that, which are expensive shoes, not that expensive, but expensive enough where you can buy like 5 Nikes or 10 Nikes for the cost. And because they're very comfortable, I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day just to try to be healthy. So I think, walkability and having one good pair of shoes that last you 2-3 years is worth it. Back in the day when I spent that money on clothing, when I was trying to work with more bigger and bigger companies, I was young, which hurts, right? Because you don't have the gray hair, don't have as much reputation.
You still look 20.
I'm almost 40. I'm a year old. In April, I'll turn 40, so less than a year. Yeah, I'm getting close, actually. And I didn't have as big of a reputation of working with enterprise brands as I do now, which made it harder back then. So looking the part made it easier. So I spent money on clothes. And in today's world, I don't really spend much money on clothes like I used to. I buy all my pants from Loro Piana because they make my dress pants stretchy, like if they're sweatpants, but they look like they're dress pants. And I have the same pair of gray pants and 12 of them. Literally, I just go through them. And as some of them get old, I go back to them and they make me more, and it just takes 3 months and they're not crazy expensive. My white t-shirts, I don't know how much they cost. They're from a company called Buck Mason. So I know they're not $100, maybe $30 or $50. I don't know what they cost, but something like that. And as my kids spill food on my clothes or get dirty, I just replace them with new ones. But I have tons of them, like maybe 30 of them in my closet. I used to buy watches. I haven't bought watches and stuff. With kids, they ding them and stuff when they're younger. And I don't want to be like, oh, I can't touch my kid or do this with them because I can't ding my watch. When you die, you're not going to be like, look at my watch. You're going to be like, look at the experiences I had. So I don't care for like watches or a lot of
business purposes.
No, business purposes. And thank you for getting me back on track. Back then it helped. Now it doesn't do anything. I literally don't care what I wear or how I look. Someone asked me the other day, hey, there's amazing hair transplants. You want to grow hair back? I'm like, probably saved a lot of money not having to get haircuts. And I just,
People will stop recognizing you.
yeah, but I can cut my own hair like I did in the hotel last night. I just put it on a number 1 and I'm just trimming, or number 0.5 or 0 or whatever comes with the Philips device, and just shave it. I'm good. I'm like, all right, save some money. And, once you start working with enterprise corporations, I think it's different for every business. Like if you're Kylie Jenner and you're a consumer, probably matters. Or if you're in fashion, it matters. When you're dealing with businesses and their enterprise and they're hiring you because they need to try to hit numbers, they don't care how you look. They rather have someone who doesn't know how to dress well and hits their number and exceeds it than someone who's really fashionable and misses their number. Right? So,
Neil, this has been great. Thank you a lot.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks a lot for sticking till the very end of this episode. I guess that means you enjoyed it, right? Because if you did, I have to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or maybe click the follow button if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify. Not sure if you know this, but subscriptions and follows are the strongest signal for these platforms to show this piece of content to more people. So I would really appreciate it if you would follow and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.